is in shambles. We have FTX filing for bankruptcy, Crypto.com sending $500 million to the wrong address. Who knows if they're going to be solvent much longer. A lot of stuff to cover today. Before we get into it, please like the stream, subscribe to our channel. Nothing we say today is financial advice. Before doing any buying and selling decisions, research it on your own. We are not financial advisors. Kevin, it's been another weird week. Starting, on Friday, we saw the hack that happened that drained FTX. Like it's been bad out there, man. Why don't you kick it off today?
Yeah. So Friday night, just no one was really anticipating this after SBF had finally stepped down as CEO and then showed that they're filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Late at night, I don't know where we just started seeing funds being pulled from FTX accounts. Users were saying that their accounts were going to zero. People were tracking this. At one point, it was 300 million. 400 million, I believe currently it's at $600 million that was taken. FTX claimed that it was a hack, but majority of the space truly believes that there's some insider angle to this, meaning someone from FTX or one of the employees, potentially even SBF himself, is responsible for all of this money just completely disappearing from the exchange.
Yeah, there's also the belief that SBF had built in a kind of a backdoor to allow him to move money from FTX to Alameda without anyone on the FTX side of it seeing, so no one from compliance or anything like that could see that all of this money was being moved over to Alameda for their work, which is really just another great indication of how big of a scumbag this guy is. So, I feel for anyone who had money on FTX, who trusted that guy. We saw, Mr. Wonderful himself, who is a big advocate for crypto. He was a believer in FTX and Sam. And it just goes to show you that even smart people, like, I'm not saying he's the end all be all, but he's a pretty sharp guy and even they can get had. So I hope people are able to recover from this. Don't beat yourself up. And hopefully it gets resolved and you get your money back. So let's stick with the crypto side of things today to start. We'll move into some of the other macro news on the traditional finance side, closer to the end. We start with crypto. Let's keep it going right there. Crypto.com was also under fire this weekend because a lot of information came out, concerns around their practices, around how they're managing their reserves. Why don't you get into that?
Yeah, so a lot of these companies in the wake of the FTX collapse were trying to show investors and retail that we do have the funds to operate as an exchange, that there's not going to be any liquidity crunches. So they all put out snapshot proof of reserves to show what they had on balance. And the big one that came out of Crypto.com was that they had 20% of their reserves in Shiba Inu. And I don't think having a little bit of exposure to Shiba Inu is bad, but we're at the bottom almost of a bear market, and you're holding literally 1/5 of your reserves in this coin that is down considerably bad from the all-time high in the bull market.
Are we sure that was the reserves, or I heard some people say that was just what customers were holding out of everything on Crypto.com? We're sure it's the reserves?
I'm not sure, actually. Let me check that out. But if that is the reserves, that's pretty messed up.
It also got discovered this week that back in October, Crypto.com had sent 320,000 ETH, and not $320,000, but 320,000 tokens to an incorrect address. The funds went to Gate.io. They were returned for the most part. Only 285,000 of that ETH was sent back. This is just a shocking display of negligence. Kevin, you and I were talking. I triple and quadruple check an address if I'm sending one ETH. Granted, I'm, don't have the money that these places do, obviously, but still, that level of negligence in not sending something to the right, like, oh, it can happen to the best of us. No, not in that situation. It can't. Like that is just not allowed to happen. So I know a few people who had money on Crypto.com, and much like you did for me last week, telling me to get my money off of FTX, I told them to get their money off of Crypto.com because maybe it's going to be in the trend of FTX. Any of the exchanges that sponsor NBA arenas, maybe they're going to go insolvent. That could be the newest the newest trend that goes on.
Potentially. I also just checked it up. According to CoinDesk, it was part of their reserves. So there's that.
That is that's not great, Bob.
No, it's I mean, I like Shiba Inu as a meme coin, in the bull market when I got like $200 to throw around, but not when it's 20% of the freaking reserves for an exchange where people are terrified right now and are trying to pull money out.
Yeah, now is a time to try to squash any of that panic, and holding 20% of reserves in a dog coin is just not the way to do that. Like, I know that Elon probably wants to have all of Twitter's money in Doge, but that's still probably not the best idea.
No, again, it's the coins that they had, where it's like 30% Bitcoin, like that. That's a reasonable like holding for an exchange. It's Bitcoin's going to hold value. Those other ones, you're not sure if they're going to be here tomorrow or not.
Yeah, for sure. Will you get into some of the information around Gate.io? Because I know you have some stuff to talk about there.
Yeah, so you brought up how the Crypto.com had sent that ETH. Apparently, it went to a wallet at Gate.io, and then they had sent back less than what they had received. So there's a little bit of controversy around that. But also the proof of reserve snapshots that had been posted between Gate.io and Huobi. The snapshot itself was taken, and it was taken with loaned crypto. So not actual stuff that they had, not their reserve, but stuff that they had been loaned. And then after the snapshot, they can track through the ledger that they sent it back, and it's actually not in their reserves. So that just freaked out tons of people. Huobi took a massive hit last night. It was like down 18%. These exchange tokens are just absolutely getting wrecked. After posting a 3.5 billion in crypto reserves, Huobi token, let's see. Yeah, it's down 18%. It's not great for these exchanges right now, especially if you're doing shady stuff. Like, just tell the truth at this point, you know what I mean? These liquidity crunches are just going to keep happening if more shady stuff comes out from them.
Yeah, having a exchanges token right now is that's like the kiss of death, really, if the exchange you're on. I mean, Binance is still doing fine, but I don't think anyone's too concerned about them. Are there any, for people in the US, are there any centralized exchanges you trust right now? Like, or is it all just get your money into, decentralized or nothing at all?
I will say that I think Coinbase and Binance US. So Coinbase, I'm not a fan of. I technically don't use them. However, they are a publicly traded company, so I think there's a lot more scrutiny under them. So they have to be a lot more transparent about some of the actions they are doing, what they have on balance. As it goes for Binance.us, they are FDIC insured, up to 250K if you're using just fiat. Not coins, nothing like that. But if you're trying to buy, your money is up to 250K protected because it's not actually on the exchange, it's through one of their banks. So between those two, I think those are pretty safe bets. I haven't heard anything bad about Kraken as well. But,
Kraken and Gemini are the other two that I'm not so sure about. I want to give them the benefit of the doubt, but it's just kind of hard to do that. One thing that I'm cautious with Gemini, and I heard some people talking about, is, if the exchange is offering a loan rate or a borrow rate that is greater than what you can get through bonds right now, it may be a bad sign. Like, I know with Gemini, their GUSD, which is like their Gemini stable coin, is paying like 6.1%. That gives me a little bit of pause right there.
Yeah, usually it's not that easy to make money. That's a pretty good percentage rate coming back. So
yeah,
if anyone else is doing that right now, that might be a little bit of something you need to question.
Yeah, that sounds kind of like a red flag to me, but I don't want to get too deep into that.
Right.
Let's talk about Solana. There has been, it recovered a little bit, not like near where it was this time last week, but it didn't totally tank. What are you looking at with Solana? There's been people saying it's going to go down to $3. Some people say that the bottom is in. I don't think we're going to get Sam coming in here saying that we can buy all of his tokens or he'll buy all of our tokens for $3. Where are you at right now?
Solana, It's a project that personally I have no interest in. I'm not going to be touching it at all. I've never been interested in Solana. It's got a kind of a weird history, meaning like out of nowhere from like November 2020 to November 2021, it went from like $1 to $268. But I couldn't give you really one reason as to why it did, other than people just started buying this. I think it was one of the coins that was just promoted so much in that bull run, but a lot of people kind of put some of the blockchain issues that they currently have and they had in the past, like to the side. They're just kind of avoiding the bad news that came with the blockchain. But we'll get into a little bit of some of the stuff that we know about Solana. They've had 5 blackouts or outages, pretty much the validation of the network becomes offline. And that happens when about 40% of the staked SOL tokens are currently offline. And we did see another almost blackout a few days back when the cloud service provider in Germany or Switzerland, I think it's a German provider, but they're in Switzerland. It's called Hetzner. They took off nodes from being online just because they can't operate Solana. The entire blockchain is just hard for them to process. So it took about 1,000 validators offline, and those validators to continue minting blocks had to find a different server. So that's for people who are validating the blockchain, minting blocks. That's not necessarily a great sign. You want your blockchain to be reliable. And last week, which I saw this last week and I didn't want to bring it up until, we got some confirmation, and we did see that the Solana Foundation did tweet about this, but they had postponed the release of those locked SOL tokens. And I never saw that before, where a blockchain can release or can postpone the release of staked rewards just because of market conditions. Like on Cardano, every 5 days when the epic ends, the new one begins, you get your rewards. It's dropped right into your account. You don't even need to, unlock it or anything like that, or have those funds locked up. Solana, your funds are currently locked up, and then out of nowhere, they just wouldn't release it for 2 days just to avoid some type of dip in the market. That's insane to me. Like, I don't know if you think the same, but that just screams centralization.
Yeah, that screams centralization. The amount of control that a few large wallets had over the supply screams centralization. I know that there are still big believers in Solana. I've never owned any Solana personally. I watched it go from 30 up to almost 300, and I was kicking myself at the time. But it's never been one of those things where I'm like desperate to get into it, and that right there is that's really messed up. Like, that's not okay to hold people's money back when they were expecting to get it, just because of the fact that you're afraid of some sort of liquidation event that's going to drive your token lower. Like, to me, if you believe in what if you're Solana and you believe in what you're building long term, then you'll understand that these things are going to happen. But that just kind of screams to me that there's a lack of confidence that they can continue to build their network into something that is going to withstand these really tough market conditions.
Absolutely. And obviously the ties to FTX has been causing a lot of this drop in the market and the price for Solana. But in that article that I read, it was from cryptoslate.com. Again, this is allegedly what some people are accusing them of, is that devs, people who are developing this Solana blockchain. There you go.
There you go. You froze up on me for a minute there.
Yeah, sorry about that. So apparently there's like accusations that the devs of Solana blockchain were able to collect their locked SOL while others were not. The validators weren't able to, and that allowed them to sell. And that was, supposed to come out on November 10th, and the market was just like dropping at that point. So everyone else, their money is locked up, and apparently people who work for the blockchain were able to liquidate.
Yeah, that's not okay.
No.
That's really messed up. Yeah, keep me away from Solana. No, thank you. I'll continue to just do my boring DCA into the blockchains that I actually believe in. So let's get into a little bit of the macro. This is not going to be as big of a week as last week, in my opinion. I mean, how could it be? But we do have some economic reports coming out this week. Producer price index on Tuesday, retail sales data on Wednesday, Thursday, initial and continuing jobless claims, and Friday, existing home sales. So we'll get a better idea, some interesting info around the health of the consumer, what the jobs market is like, the housing market. So I think those are all things that could have impact on the market for sure, but I don't think it's going to be market moving news like the CPI was last week. We also have some earnings reports from bigger companies like Home Depot, Walmart, Cisco, NVIDIA, Lowe's. So once again, kind of seeing how consumers are spending their money, how bad it is for tech, semiconductors. The Walmart one is interesting. A lot of these that are coming out this week, Walmart and NVIDIA both had pretty negative forward guidance in the past few months. As an NVIDIA stockholder, I always stay on top of what's going on there, and I believe in it long term. But definitely, there's going to be some more pain in the short term. I sold some back in November of last year, but certainly not enough. So interested to kind of see what the earnings look like, as well as the investor calls and the forward guidance from them. So let's kind of take a look now at some of your price targets and technical analysis. This is kind of my favorite part of the show is you talking to me and breaking some of this stuff down. So why don't you start at the top with the DXY?
Absolutely. Let me just pull up the chart. So the DXY, I had been saying that it was going to bounce somewhere around 109. Clearly, the inflation data came out and it crashed through that, and it's currently trying to find support. It's a bit oversold at the moment on the weekly and on the daily. So it's undervalued, in my opinion. Let me just pull it up. And all right, there we are.
Here we go.
So we're looking at the daily at the moment. As we can see, the stochastic RSI down here, it's pretty undervalued. It's under this range. And if we're looking at this right here, it looks like it broke out of this parallel channel and it's trying to find support. It's at some point going to push up, in my opinion. I do see that it did pump up a little bit today. Again, Bitcoin and all those coins started to pump as well. So we do see some movement on the upside here, but this stochastic RSI on the 4-hourly is telling me that it's going to go into overbought pretty soon. So my next target for support would be somewhere around here, 105, 106. This was right at the 200 EMA. So this estimated moving average, we might just get a touch to it, come right down, and then that's when we start to see it pump up again. I don't know how much strength the dollar is going to have in the coming weeks. That's something we're going to have to monitor as we go, but it does look like it's primed to move to the upside. Let's look at the weekly. Yep, weekly close.
Okay, so if it did move to the upside, how would that? I know that you're still mainly in cash right now. How are you using the DXY to impact your decision on when you're going to get back in the market?
Yeah, so I think the market doesn't come down unless the DXY goes up. I think that's going to be a huge indicator. Like last week, we saw FTX bring the market down, but it didn't bring it down to where it needed to be, in my opinion, the main support. So I think as the two begin to shift and we start to see the stochastic RSI on the weekly, which I'll get into in a moment, of some of our altcoins and Bitcoin come down towards the bottom, the DXY might be rising a little bit. And that's what I would consider to be an accumulation zone. That's where I'm probably going to purchase. If everything goes as planned, I can jump into Bitcoin now because I think that's going to be pretty telling of when it's going to be a good time to buy, in my opinion, or at least when I'm buying. So let me just erase this. We don't need that right now. But we saw this is the weekly, and we made this big red candle last week. This was the FTX debacle, and as it broke out of this parallel channel here, it came down to right here, $16,276. That's where we closed last night on the weekly. And if we look at the stochastic RSI down here, we just made a little bit of a dent. So there's still this range right here from right in the middle to oversold, where I think we have a good chance of Bitcoin coming down. And I think that would be the support at 14K. That's the monthly support that we had. It's historic. If we go to the monthly real quick, I always bring this up because I genuinely think this is the strongest support we currently have. And that's right here. We've hit it in December of 2017. We hit it in January of 2019, and we broke through it in November of 2020. So it does look like there's going to definitely be some good move to the downside for Bitcoin. We still got some room to do that. But if we also look at the monthly stochastic RSI down here, it is completely oversold. Like, it's potentially the lowest it can possibly be. So if we start to see this rise over the next few months after Bitcoin has hit the bottom on the weekly, there's a good chance that that could potentially be the local bottom for the market, for crypto at least.
Okay. So
Right.
we'll stay on top of that. We'll keep updating everyone with some of this data if you're not using it on your own. I don't think you should. Once again, not financial advice, but I trust Kevin, and he's much smarter than I am. So let's keep moving through. I know we want to touch on Link, ETH, Matic, Cardano. Let's just keep plowing through them, man, because this is good.
Absolutely. We don't need to jump in the charts for all of them, but let's look at Link currently. Link actually did something pretty awesome last night. It closed below weekly support. So what that tells me is that the support that we had prior is now resistance. So let's go here. Let's go to the weekly. And this would have been the weekly support right here at 1617. Or currently we're bouncing off of it again, but we're also extremely overbought as we see on the weekly right here. We're coming down. So there's definitely some room to the downside. And we saw it hit last night at $5.69, and it bounced right off of it. And that's actually support as well. Not super strong, but it was enough for it to keep it going up. Let's see. If we look at the daily, we're looking pretty good. It's a little bit oversold, so I wouldn't be surprised if there is a little bit of a pump up, but we're going to watch this stochastic RSI to see how the momentum develops over the next few days. But the one thing I was looking at was our price targets. So if we currently go from here to this red line, this is what I projected. That's a 26% drop, and that's totally possible. I don't think that it's not going to hit that. I think there's a good chance it will hit it. But I'm also not saying that a target such as $3.82 is impossible. That's 37% down. And then let's look at $2.91. That'd be 50%. I think getting down there might be a little bit greedy, but I wouldn't count out this $3.93. I think that most altcoins still need to drop between 40 to 50, 60%. And the 40% drop for this coin, which technically put in the bottom here in June at $5.32. I think it would need to bottom a little bit more. It'd have to come, this leg would have to come down to potentially one of these two targets. All right, so that was Link. Let's go to Ethereum. All right, Ethereum, here we are, oversold on the daily, so I wouldn't be surprised by a little bit of a pump up. That might just be, one last exit for people to get out of the market. And that goes for all these coins when we look at the oversold, overbought. But Ethereum, we are projecting that we're going to hit $877 next, mainly because that is our last test of support. It's also the June low. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see if that holds or not. But based on the stochastic RSI, it looks like it's on its way down. So over the next few weeks, we might test this, might break through it. But I think a huge level of support is at $740. Prior to that, I thought it was $636, but $740 looks like really good support in my opinion. Let me see if I can pull up the monthly. Again, I'm using historic data for a lot of this just because this is going to be hopeful going into the bull market. But 740 is right here. And as we see, we came up, bounced above it. Actually, it might be the weekly that we need. 740, man, historic data. It's a lot of info, but it's fun to go and dive into these charts. All right, 740, as we came up, bounced up above it. We bounced off of it right here, and that's when led us into the bull market, came down. We bounced off it again here, back right as we were coming down from this.
Is that back in 2018?
This would be 2018, yes, January, February.
Okay.
So that's right around there. And then obviously we lost the support. This support became resistance, broke back down. So there's a lot of historic support that I've been looking at, and that would be a pretty good line. I think the range of 700 to that 877 is a good area of where we will land, but I definitely think that 877 will break because I don't think the bottom is in yet for Ethereum. All right, we'll rush through this. We're gonna go to Cardano real quick, and then we'll jump into Matic. And Solana, I don't even think I need to open the charts for that one. All right, Cardano.
No, I think we're good there.
Yeah, I can tell you where that's going. Here we are, Cardano. We closed on the weekly below this line right here. This is 38, and we also closed below 32.70, and that was last night. Yep, just barely under it, closed barely under it. So that means that we lost that support on the weekly. We're probably going to retest that as we are pretty low on the stochastic RSI. Let's check the daily. Daily, we're oversold, so we're probably going to test up. I would anticipate if there is a pump, we test maybe like this 38 cents. Yeah, 38 cents would be a good rejection zone. And then we lose the support and we could potentially go down to our target. Again, like I said, most alts, 40 to 60% is just what I'm expecting. So a drop from where we currently are to this target of like 18, 19 cents would be about 42%, 43%. And that's in line with what we're expecting. Let's go to Matic.
So did you see the news from Nike today?
From Nike, I did not.
So they're launching a new website that is aimed at, integrating Web3, but not with crypto native people. It's going to be called swoosh.nike. And it, like a lot of these other ones, is going to be on Polygon. So while Polygon is going to continue to have some pain short term, I get more bullish almost. It seems like every week we get a new announcement of a large brand that is coming into crypto, NFTs, Web3, and a lot of them are doing it on the Polygon network. So I'm not expecting Polygon to rip anytime soon. I don't have a price target in mind, none of that stuff, but I'm just going to keep accumulating it because I do believe that long term, their network is strong, their business dev team is strong, and there's a lot of possibility there.
Yeah, Polygon is one that I definitely think it's a safe, not bet, but safe to believe that they're going to do really well in the future. Again, that's Chainlink, Cardano, Matic, Polygon. I think those are great blockchains to definitely do your research in now, just so you're ready when the price does eventually hit targets that you might want to buy at. So currently for Matic, we're oversold on the daily. Let's go to the weekly real quick. Weekly is extremely overbought. That barely made any dent after last week's entire, bearish engulfing candle. Goes all the way up here, comes right back down. We broke out of this channel and then we came right back into it. So we're currently within it. So that's some support on this trend line here. But I anticipate that we're going to break down from that. And my question with Polygon is very similar to Chainlink. The low was put back in June, but we're currently pretty high up from where that June low was. That's at like 31 cents. And we're trading in this parallel channel, which it would be, this is a bear flag, where it's going up and everyone's anticipating it, making higher lows and higher highs and higher lows. And so at some point, we're going to break out of this, in my opinion. The question is, where is it going to land? Are we going to do a double bottom at 31 cents from the June low? Or are we going to put in more support, maybe a few cents down? But I do think there's a big break coming for this coin. I don't think it has anything to do with, all the news and the tech that they are operating on. I think it's just price structure, and eventually this price is going to have to come down.
Yeah, and I think this kind of leads into an interesting discussion because you are more on the trader side. I'm more of that's not my thing. I try to look at like the macro environment and, longer term the investor, if you will. So like for me, day-to-day price changes don't really disrupt my thesis. It's news around it. It's what they're doing. So I think this is just kind of a good comparison of if you're trying to trade this stuff, which in this market, Godspeed. But I continue to remain very bullish on Matic beyond, this year, next year, however long this bear market lasts. Like, I don't think they're going anywhere.
Yeah, definitely. Great project. I definitely will be picking some up.
All right. Good deal. Anything else you want to touch on before we get out of here?
Don't panic. I think there's been a ton of panic in the space right now. If you are prepared for the next move in the market, there's nothing to worry about. Just position yourself well, be nimble, and protect your wealth. That's all I got to say for today.
Yeah, if you're new to crypto, I've only been around crypto for about a year and a half. I've been investing much longer, but this is just one of those reminders that, like Kevin said, patience is key right now. The markets are a way of moving money from the impatient to the patient. I believe that was Warren Buffett who said that one. So just keep that in mind. Dollar cost average in if you want to take that approach, or trade the charts, look at some of these things, wait for them to bottom out like Kevin does if you want to go that way. But, in a few years when people are calling you lucky because you've made a bunch of money in crypto, you can tell them to shove it up their ass because you had the patience and the stones to sit through it while the other people didn't. So thanks everybody for watching today. Once again, like today's show, subscribe to our channel. We'll be back on Thursday afternoon to talk about what other crazy shit has gone on this week, because there's going to be something. There always is. So for Kevin, for the team at FLOLiO, I am Jeremy. We will see you next time, everybody. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.
Take care.